Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. We are from group 2. My name is Nona Najat binti Syarif Izwani and we have 5 group members which is Syarul Ashikin, Aini Atira, Nur Syuhada, Siti Norhaiba and me, Nur Najat. So, the company that we choose is Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad. Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad is a public listed company on Bursa Malaysia. Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad is established on 1960 and located at Sibu, Sarawak. So, the main activity of Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad is oil palm and also timber production. The company also have other activities such as private flight operation, fabrication and workshop services, production of coconut seedling, investment and bird nest. On 2021, Jaya Tiasa revenue is 723.4 million while for 2020 is 701.8 million. From that amount, we can say that Jaya Tiasa is successfully boosted their revenue 3% more than compared than previous year. And then, more than their revenue is come from oil palm with 81.91%, following with timber operation 18.03% and also others activity 0.06%. So, audit cycle that relevant to Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad is audit revenue cycle. Audit revenue cycle is the process to examine the recording revenue that has been generated for the company. So, basically there are 3 steps in order to recording the revenue. The first one is the company need to track and recording the transaction. To start the first step, the company need to receive an order from customer or the company need to enter to agreement with the customer. While the second step is the company need to deliver the order to the customer, and the third step is the company need to collect payment from customer in order to close the transaction. So from all these 3 steps, we can say that Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad successfully done all of these 3 process. So that's why we choose audit revenue cycle as audit cycle that relevant to our company as a first reason. Since Jaya Tiasa have a lot of activity to gain the revenue, so the auditor should assess the inherent risk related to the revenue cycle as a second step. So the function to assess the inherent risk is to make sure that the company is free from error and also fraud. So the auditor need to conduct a test on Jaya Tiasa revenue sources such as sales, refund and return rights, and bill and hold transaction. So why the auditor need to examine or refund? Because if the company have refund, the company have to reduce their revenue that has been received by the company. Sometimes, some of the company ask their management to not reduce their revenue by passing by the refund that they receive in order to do fraud. Other than that, the auditor also have to check on their manufacturer of the product. For example, in 2020, Jaya Tiasa have to close their wood manufacturing plant due to high cost of operation, reduced global and local market demands, and also decline in natural log production and supply. From these all 3 things, we can say that it is nonsense if the company said that their revenue mostly come from wood manufacturing plant. So, the auditor need to check back from which activity that mainly contribute to the revenue of the company in order to avoid fraud or error. So, the third step that the auditor should do is to evaluate the pressure that faced by the management that can lead to the misstated revenue. So, sometimes the company have to do that because they want to encourage investor to invest to their company. And sometimes the management have to do that because they want to get a good impression from upper level management and also board of director. But in some situation, sometimes the worker did not have any intention to misstated the revenue and it happened due to the human error. So the auditor need to check either the company or the management itself have intention or did not have any intention to misstated the revenue. So the last step is the auditor need to evaluate the company performance and substantive tax. So the purpose to do this is to make sure that Jaya Tiasa have recorded their information accurately. So things that the auditor can do is the first one is the auditor can check on their trial balance and things that created by the accountant at the end of the cycle. Other than that, the auditor also can confirming the amount of receivable with the company or with the people that owe the money. And then the third things that the auditor can do is by reviewing the history of the company by evaluating the accuracy of the allowance of uncollectible amount. So after doing all of these 4 steps, we can say that the auditor can provide some assurance that the company have recorded their revenue accurately.
Hi, my name is Syarul Ashikin binti Rosli, 273187. I will comment on audit fees, non-audit fees, and audit report. What is audit fees? Audit fees are costs that incurred by companies to pay to the public accounting firms to audit the company's financial statement every financial year. the audit fees are indirect expenses. Based on Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, for their annual report for 2020, statutory audit fee for group are RM809,000, while for company 230,000. For the year 2021, audit fees for group remain same, which is RM809,000, while for company, they were increasing for RM20,000, which is RM250,000. Audit fees for these 2 years are increasing, and it's proven that the indirect expenses for the company are increasing. Next, non-audit fees. Non-audit fees are audit-related fees, tax fees, and all other fees. They were decreasing between 2020 and 2021, which is the difference for non-audit fees under affiliates. EY Malaysia for group is RM82,000. For the affiliates of EY Malaysia under the company, they are also decreasing, which is RM31,200. So, we move to the next point, which is audit report. What is audit report? Audit report is one of a document that containing the auditor's opinion on whether a company's financial statement comply with GAAP and also free from material misstatement. This audit report is important because creditors, regulators and banks require an audit of a company's financial statement. The objective of audit is to communicate auditor's finding to the users of the financial statement. It also to express an opinion on the truth and fairness of the financial statements. In Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, the auditor have issued an unqualified audit report for year 2020 and 2021. The auditor has concluded that financial statement of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad are fair and transparent based on true research. Besides, the report that have been issued will be the proof to the government that Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad is conducting their operation compliance with the law, and it will help the statutory clearances such as to the tax payment to the government. This report also will give a positive impression about the company to potential investor, which is the company will gain more investor to their company and can expand their business more.
For my part, we will discuss further information about the audit partner and the Chief Financial Officer of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad. To give a short brief, the audit committee of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad are made up of 3 members, which all of them are independent non-executive directors. So the current composition of the audit committee and the company consists of Datuk Wong Li Yun as the chairperson, Mr. Yong Vun Kar as the member, and Tan Sri Datuk Sri Muhammad Fuzi bin Harun also as the member of the audit committee. So firstly, we take a look on Datuk Wong Li Yun as the chairperson of the audit committee. So Datuk Wong Li Yun is an independent non-executive director who is not the chairman of the board. So she was appointed to the board on 21st June 2007. And the other positions held by her in the board committees are as the chairperson for the nomination committee and also as a member in the remuneration committee. So Datuk Wong is a certified public accountant, and since 15 July 2020, Datuk Wong has served as an independent executive director of Export Import Bank of Malaysia, Berhad. Second one, Mr. Yong Vun Kar, the member of the audit committee. So besides being a member in the audit committee, he is also the chairman of the remuneration committee and a member of the nomination committee. So through his career, Mr. Yong has served in various functions, and Mr. Yong is currently engaged with KKB Engineering Berhad as an independent non-executive director. So for the last member of the audit committee is Tan Sri Datuk Sri Muhammad Fuzi bin Harun. He is a retired Inspector General of the board of the Royal Malaysia Police. He was appointed to the board on 2 March 2020 and has been redesignated as non-executive chairman on 7 January 2021. Currently, he serves as an independent non-executive director for Tropicana Corporation Berhad and Siap Holdings Berhad. So generally for Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, None of the audit committee have any family relationship with any directors or major shareholders of the company. There is also no conviction for any offence within the past 5 years, nor any public sanction or penalty imposed by the relevant regulatory bodies during financial year under review. All of the audit committee also confirms to have no conflict of interest with the company. So next up is the information about the Chief Financial Officer of Jaya Tiasa, Holdings Berhad. So referring to the annual report 2021, the current CFO of the company is Thomas He King Siu. He is 56 years old and is a Malaysian citizen. Thomas He has a good education background and received a Master of Business Administration, Finance from the University of Leicester, UK. So Thomas He is a chartered accountant and also an ASEAN Chartered Professional Accountant, CPA Australia, and a fellow member of the Chartered Tax Institute of Malaysia. He is also a member of Malaysian Institute of Accountants. So prior to joining Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad in 1995, Thomas He was entry in an international audit firm and was responsible for the setting up of the internal audit department. So following that, he had served in various capacities and functions in the group, including financial reporting, corporate taxation and finance, risk management, and also investor relation. So he has been appointed as CFO of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad on 1st January 2011. So to this day, he has become the CFO of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad for 11 years. Lastly, he does not have any family relationship with the directors or major shareholders of the company. He is also not convicted of any offence within the past 5 years, nor any public sanctions or penalty imposed by the relevant regulatory bodies during the financial year, and he also has no conflict of interest with the company.
My name is Noshora binti Zulkifli, metric number 273794. Next, I will talk about the most difficult and complex account to audit. But before that, I would like to explain what is audit and why is it important. So what is audit? According to the Corporate Finance Institute, audit is an important term used in accounting that describes the examination and verification of companies' financial records. So why is it important? It is important because it can ensure that the financial information is represented fairly and accurately in accordance with relevant accounting standards. So, back to the first question, which account is considered as the most difficult and complex account to audit in the case of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad? So there are mainly two accounts. The first account is inventory account, and the second account is trade receivable account. So as for inventory account, it is considered as a complex account to audit because this inventory account comes in a variety of formats that are challenging for the auditors to comprehend. Because of the huge number of diverse items involved, the necessity to allocate manufacturing costs to inventory and the obsolescences are all the factors that makes inventory auditing is complex. Besides that, inventory auditing is difficult because of the valuation methods. So there are several inventory valuation methods such as first in, first out, FIFO, last in, last out, specific identification, and weighted average cost. So all of these methods pose a difficulty in determining which method to use and why choose that particular method over the others. Next, inventory auditing is complex because inventory can be easily transferred and stored in many locations. The necessity for the company to keep the inventory in multiple locations makes the counting of the inventory and physical control is difficult. Okay, furthermore, the inventory of Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad has a variety of items such as logs, fresh fruit bunches, plywood, raw nest, and many more. Okay, because of this diverse item, it is difficult for the auditor to observe or evaluate them. Therefore, inventory audits are difficult to scale. The higher the volume of inventory, the more strategic solutions are needed in order to perform the audit. Okay, in 2021, Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad has temporarily ceased its timber manufacturing operations due to unfavorable market and economic outlook. As a result, impairment test has been carried out on the inventories, which resulted in impairment loss of 9,088,000 in write-down of inventories. Therefore, during an inventory audit, the inventory needs to be revalued in order to reflect its true worth to the organization. Due to that, the inventory account is most likely to be misstated due to errors in estimating the value of inventory, counting errors, and theft. Besides the inventory account, trade receivable account is also difficult to audit because it represents a significant portion of company's asset.
The procedure of monitoring and collecting payments on trade receivable account is complicated and complex. So the trading terms for Jaya Tiasa with its customers are mainly on credit, and the credit period is normally for a period of 30 days. So the inconsistency and the risk of default payment coupled with recovery of bad debt makes auditing trade receivable complex. Moreover, trade receivable account is also susceptible to errors and fraud due to the large numbers of transactions that occur and the lack of control over the account. So these are all the factors that makes it as a complex and difficult accounts to audit.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aini Atira binti Hasram. My matric number is 273704. So I will present about the analytical procedures on the company. So the first analytical procedure is asset turnover ratio. Formula to calculate asset turnover ratio is net sales divided by average total assets. So asset turnover ratio indicates the company's efficiency in mobilizing their assets to produce the revenue. So for Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, the asset turnover ratio is lower, which is 0.309 in 2020 and 0.355 in 2021. So lower asset turnover ratio means that the company may face problems with the surplus production capacity, bad tax collection methods, and also poor inventory management. The second analytical procedures is current ratio. Formula to calculate current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. So the current ratio determines the company's ability to pay short-term liabilities which are due within 1 year with their current assets. For Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, their current ratio is lower, which is 0.175 in 2020 and 0.257 in year 2021. So lower current ratio means that the company have risk of distress or default. In addition, lower current ratio also means that the company have more short-term debts than short-term assets. So the third analytical procedures is debt to equity ratio. Formula to calculate debt to equity ratio is total debt divided by total equity. Debt to equity ratio determines the company's ability to cover all the outstanding debts with the total equity of the company if there is a business downturn. So for Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, their debt to equity ratio is lower, which is 0.922 in year 2020 and 0.705 in year 2021. So lower debt to equity ratio means that it is generally acceptable because higher debt to equity ratio means that the company has been actively financing their growth with debt. So the fourth analytical procedure is return on assets ratio. So formula to calculate return on assets ratio is net income divided by total assets. So return on asset ratio determines the company's efficiency in generating a profit based on its assets. So for Jaya Tiasa Holding Berhad, the return on asset ratio is lower, which is negative 0.028 in year 2020 and 0.016 in year 2021. So lower return on assets ratio means that the company is not efficient and face a high risk in getting a return from assets. So the company should improve in terms of managing their balance sheets to generate profits. However, from year 2021, we can see that there is a rise in return on assets ratio. So this means that the company is performing well in terms of increasing their profits with every investment ringgit Malaysia the company spends. So the last analytical procedure is gross margin ratio. So formula to calculate gross margin ratio is gross profit divided by net sales. Gross margin ratio determines the company's revenue, either it is high or low after paying off its the company cost of goods sold. So for Jaya Tiasa Holdings Berhad, the gross margin ratio is lower but increasing from year to year, which is in year 2020 0.107 and in year 2020 the gross margin ratio is 0.268. So the lower gross margin ratio means that the company has increased prices of goods from time to time and obtained a cheaper supplier in order to generate positive revenue. So that's all from me. Thank you.
So with that marks the end of presentation from Group 2. Thank you for listening.